Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom to the whole house of YAHUAH'S. All 12 tribes, wherever your feet are touching the soil on this yom. Shabbat Shalom to you. Peace and blessings to you and your house. That is to say, Shalom and Barakut to you and your whole entire house. Shabbat Shalom to the elder Ak, Yehuda. Shabbat Shalom to the younger Ak, Ephraim. Shalom to the former stranger, the former Gentile, the former nation, the former foreigner, who is no longer a Gentile or a nation or a foreigner or a stranger, who was formerly estranged from the everlasting covenant, but having now been engrafted into the house, the Ba'if of YAHUAH, having received the Ruach of adoption, the Ruach HaKadosh, and whereby being engrafted into the olive tree and being re-engrafted into the tree of life, and now being a fellow citizen of YAHUAH, and now whereby being a fellow partaker of the same everlasting covenant that was made with YAHUAH and with YAHUAH alone. Shabbat Shalom to you, wherever your feet are touching the soil. Peace and blessings. Shalom and Barakut to you and your entire house. Shabbat Shalom to you, YAHUAH, where all 12 tribes, wherever your feet are touching the soil. We thank you for those of you who are on YouTube, who will listen to this teaching later on. We are grateful that Yahuwah has led you to spend Shabbat with us and to listen to his voice through his lowly servant. Thank you. We are grateful for you. I am Daud ben Yahuwah, and this is my Aisha Ashayah.
Shalom.
Welcome to Yahuwah's Remnant Shabbat gathering. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. We continue this journey. This journey began over 6 months ago, at the beginning of August, the month that they called August. This searching for the ancient path began back in the month of August. It has taken some twists and some turns. It has gone up some hills, and it has descended into some valleys. But shortly after Sukkot, this past Sukkot, this road, it began to take a turn. It began to take a turn, and shortly after Sukkot, Abba Yahuwah, he introduced the knuckleball, and he exclaimed to us that we must be perfect, that he is no longer accepting excuses, that he is no longer winking, that we do not have the excuses that our foreparents had. We are living in a time where knowledge has increased, and we have access to things, and we have access to understanding that they did not have. And so he is no longer winking. And while our foreparents here, they understood the notion of perfection. They called it holiness. They call it holiness. In truth, it is separateness. It is being kadush. It is being kadush as Yahuwah is kadush. It is being perfect as he is perfect. They called it holiness. And although they aspired to perfection and what they called holiness, they did not understand that perfection, or what they call holiness, or what is more accurately separateness, is in fact Torah. They did not understand this. They had been lied to, like many of us had been lied to. They too had been lied to. And so there was a generation of them in which this message of holiness was preached to, and in whom they adhered to it. They adhered to this message of holiness with all of their heart. Indeed, in their rendition of holiness, it meant to abstain from alcohol. It meant for women to wear long dresses down towards their ankles. Now, I'm not speaking against this, because women should be covered. Indeed, men should be covered as well. But separateness does not end with simply covering ourselves up. It does not end there. Neither does it begin there. But they had their own understanding of what separation was, of what holiness was, based upon what they had been taught, and based upon what they understood of the scriptures. And they obeyed it with their whole heart, with all their mind, and with all their strength. They obeyed it. They obeyed this message of holiness. They obeyed it so much so that there was a time when the Ruach of Yahuwah dwelled amongst these people who called themselves holy. There was a time when the Ruach of Yahuwah in power dwelt amongst these people. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Because they aspired to be separate with all their heart, and Yahuwah winked at these people. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. So much so that there were miracles and signs and wonders that occurred amongst this holiness movement. There was a time in the movement, in the Christian movement, in which Yahuwah delivered me from. There was a time when wheelchairs and canes and stretchers and all sorts of things were hung from the rafters of the church. They were hung from there as a reminder of the power of Yahuwah, because he responds to perfection. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. He responds to perfection. And so there was a time when canes and wheelchairs and walking sticks and stretchers were hung from the rafters of that church. There was a story coming from the movement that Yahuwah delivered me from, that there was once a cow that had died in a community of holiness believers. A cow had died, and it was the only cow in the community. And the elders of that community came and they laid hands on that cow. They laid hands on that cow, praying the prayer of belief. And that cow was raised from the dead. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. There are stories of people coughing up tumors. Coughing up tumors because these people would aspire to obey this message of separateness, would aspire to obey this message of holiness, as they called it, with all their heart, mind, and strength. But not only did these people aspire to obey this message, but there was one cog, you see. There was one key cog that they all had in common. And it was something that I remembered as a young boy, going to these churches, these holiness churches. It was something that I remembered as a young boy. And it was their love for one another. You see, they truly love one another, and they truly love Yahuwah with all of their heart, mind, and strength. You see, it's that thing called love. It is ahab in the Hebrew, which in the Hebrew is a verb. It denotes action. Ahab denotes action. It is from the root word ahabah in the Hebrew, which also means love, but ahabah is a noun. We understand that, some of us, I'm not a very educated man, but I understand that a noun is a person, place, or thing. And so a noun is something tangible. It is something that you can touch. It is something you can feel and see and smell. This is what Ahabah is. And you see, these people, they had it was love in action, and it was Ahabah. It was a noun. It was something that you could feel, that you could touch, that you could smell. They had this because, you see, it is love that will cause you to serve Yahuwah. It is love that will cause you to serve, cause us to serve one another, to put one another before ourselves. It is love that will cause an Aisha to humbly submit to her husband in servitude. It is love that will cause a husband to serve his wife. It is love that will cause us to lay down our lives for one another, because no greater love has a man than this, than to lay down his life for his friends. This is that ancient path, Mishpaka. Everything begins there. Everything begins with love. Love causes us to turn to Abba. Love causes us to want to serve him with all of our heart, mind, and strength. Love causes us to want to serve one another. This is the ancient path. This is the servant's role. Do you understand? This is the servant's role. This is the lowly man's role. This is the meek and humble and submissive man's role that not everybody has found. It is a private role that is not open for the public. The public, they have their broad roads, their broad expressways, but this road is for the servants. It is a servant's role in which we lowly and humbly serve one another. All of our righteous fathers were servants. They were all servants. They all put each other before themselves. They all walked upright before Yahuwah and before men. They were servants. They were all servants. But we cannot be a servant without love. And the level of love, which is righteousness and which is perfection, the level of love that is expected of us, the level of righteousness that is expected of us, it can't come from this, Mishpaka. It can't come from this. This doesn't want to serve. This doesn't want to humble itself. This doesn't want to put others before itself. This can't even love Yahuwah. This is his enemy. This, the flesh, is his enemy. And so he started to speak to us about that perfection. Shortly after Sukkot, he then called my Aisha and I away for 40 days. And when he brought us back, that road then took a sharp right turn. It took a sharp right turn, and now we are headed on this road directly to Mount Zion. This road is headed directly to Mount Zion, provided that you stay on it, and provided that you're on it, and provided that you are perfect, because only the perfect walk this way. This is the perfect way. This is the ancient way. This is Torah. This is love. Is not Yahuwah love? Yes, he is. And he is the ancient of days. Is not Yahuwah Torah? Yes, he is. And Torah is love. Is not Yahuwah perfect? Yes, he is. Yes, he is. And we too must be perfect as he is perfect. And if we make the boast that we are on this ancient path, you must display that fruit of perfection. We must display that fruit of perfection. If we are not displaying that fruit of perfection, then we are not on this road. We are not on this road. And so shortly after coming back, he began to show us that there are just two manner of people. There are just two manner of people. Either we are born from above or we are born from below. Either we are seed of Yahuwah or we are seed of the wicked one. Either we are a good tree that can bear no rotten fruit, or we are a rotten tree which can bear no good fruit. Either or. Either we are firstborn according to the Ruach, or we are firstborn according to the flesh. Either we are wheat or we are tares. Either we are sheep or we are goats. Either we are descendants of Yaakov or we are descendants of Esau. Either we are descended from the second Adam or we are descended from Cain. There is no in between. There is no in between. And each descendant, each seed bears the requisite fruit of who their father is. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Each seed bears the requisite fruit of whose father they belong, of who their father is. There is no in between. And so Yahuwah has taken out the guesswork. He has removed the guesswork. There is no more guesswork. And he has shown us now that in this season that there is a great separation occurring. That there are many who say that they belong to him. There are many who say that they love him. There are many who call themselves your ak or akuf, a brother, a sister, but they lie because their fruits don't bear witness. Their fruit does not bear witness. Either we are perfect because we have been born from above, or we are imperfect because we are from below. There is no in between. There is no in between. And so he has us now on this perfect way. And he is so loving that he is even loving enough to show us some examples of perfection. He is showing us how to walk perfect. He is showing us how to walk upright before him. He is showing us how to guard the righteous Torah in Ruach and in truth, because we can't guard the Torah in the flesh. The flesh hates the Torah. The flesh is incapable of guarding Torah. The Torah can only be kept if we have received his Ruach HaKadosh. And he has shown us that in the example of our righteous fathers. He has shown us in the example of Seth and righteous Habal. He has shown us in the example of Mahalalel, and not in any particular order, just calling out some of our righteous fathers. He has shown us in the example of righteous Kanuk and righteous Methuselah and righteous Noach and righteous Shem and righteous Eber or Abba and righteous Abraham and Yitzchak and Yaakov and righteous Yahusuf, in whom we are looking at now, and righteous Ephraim and righteous Yahushua HaMashiach. And not just them, but all of the other righteous fathers, and Masha, and Aharon, and Dawood, and Shamuel, and Ishayahu, and Yakaskal, and Yaram Yahu, and some of the other righteous prophets. And Daniel, he's showing us a tangible example of what perfection looks like and what it looks like to be called the firstborn son, and what it looks like to be called the firstborn son. And so we continue this walk this day. We continue this walk, and we're going to continue to allow Abba to show us a righteous example of one of our righteous fathers, so that we can see what perfection looks like, so that we can see what walking in the Ruach looks like, so that we can see what righteousness looks like, so that we can see what it looks like to be called a firstborn son, born not of flesh and of blood, but born of Ruach. And so, as it has been mentioned, we've been looking at Yahusuf now for the past 3 weeks. And it was mentioned then that we are probably going to be looking at Yahushua for a while, because there's more than one text that speaks to the righteousness of Yahushua. There are more texts that speak to his righteousness than there are that speaks to the righteousness of his father Yahuwah. But as we have read, we have understood in the testament of Yahushua that Yahushua was in every way like his father Yahuwah, who was in every way like his father Yitzchak, who was in every way like his father Abraham. And so in looking at the righteous example of Yahushua, we are looking at the righteous example of all of our fathers. When we're looking at Yahushua, we are looking at a mirror image of the Hamashiach himself. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And so we're going to continue looking at him today. We're going to continue looking at him. But before we go to look at him, Abba wants us to take a look at a few precepts, just to get our minds right as to what this is all about. What this is all about. What the example of Yahushua is all about. What the example of Yahushua is all about. He wants to show us a few precepts so as to get us in the right frame of mind. To get us in the right frame of mind. And so if you have your scriptures, we're going to take our time. Barak Yahuwah. If you have your scriptures, turn now to the 13th chapter of YAHUAH'S, commonly called John. The 13th chapter of YAHUAH'S, commonly called John. Commonly called John. And if you're taking notes, this is Searching for the Ancient Path, Part 36. Firstborn are perfect. Firstborn are perfect. YAHUAH'S, John, the 13th chapter, and we're going to read verses 1 through 18. Correct, little one? 1 through 17. We're going to read verses 1 through 17, and then we're going to skip down to verse 35. To verse 35. Beginning at verse 1 of the Bashura of YAHUAH'S, commonly called John. Beginning at verse 1, we read,
And before the festival of the Pesach, Yahushua, knowing that his hour had come, that he should move out of this world unto the Father, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. And supper taking place, the devil having already put it into the heart of Yehuda from Karauf, son of Shamma'um, to deliver him up. Yahushua, knowing that the Father had given all into his hands, and that he had come from Elohim and was going to Elohim, rose from supper and laid aside his garments. And having taken a towel, he girded himself. After that, he put water into a basin and began to wash the feet of the taught ones and to wipe them with the towel with which he was girded.
Yahuwah in flesh humbled himself, girded his loins, and began to wash the feet of his taught ones and to dry them. Yahuwah in flesh begins to wash the feet of his taught ones. Yahuwah in flesh begins to, you don't hear me. This is the ancient way. This is the ancient of days in flesh. He's always been that way. He's always been love. He's always been full of love. He's always been this way. Do you understand? This is the ancient way. Yahuwah in flesh washes the feet of his taught ones, putting them before himself. Even though at this point, he knows who he is. He knows full well who he is. They don't fully understand yet who he is. But he fully understands who he is. Who he is. And when they figured out who he was, oh, they did great exploits in the world. They did great exploits. They went to the ends of the earth, walking with this knowledge and this understanding that Yahuwah had come to earth and had laid aside his life for me and had washed my feet. Had washed my feet. My Creator had washed my feet. I pray you're understanding that this is the ancient way. You want to be like him? You want to be like Yahuwah? You want to be perfect? You got to be a servant. You got to be a servant. We must be a servant of all. A servant of all. Putting all men, putting your brothers and your sisters before yourself. Read, little one.
And so he came to Shimon Kafah, and he said to him, Master, do you wash my feet? Yahusha answered and said to him, You do not know what I am doing now, but you shall know after this. Kafah said to him, By no means shall you wash my feet ever. Yahusha answered him, If I do not wash you, you have no part with me.
If I do not wash you, you have no part with me. I came to serve you, Kafah. I didn't come to be served. I came to serve you. I came to serve my bride and to lay down my life for her. I came to serve you. And so if you won't let me serve you, Kafah, and teach you how you are to serve one another, you have no part in me. You have no part in me. Read, little one.
Shimon Kafah said to him, Master, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head. Yahusha said to him, He who has had a bath does not need to wash except his feet, but is clean altogether. And you are clean, but not all of you. For he knew who would deliver him up. So he said, You are not all clean. So when he had washed their feet and taken his garments and sat down again, he said to them, Do you know what I have done to you?
Do you know what I have done to you? Read.
You call me teacher and master.
You call me teacher and master.
And you say, Well, for I am.
And you say, Well, for I am.
Then if I, master and teacher, have washed your feet.
Then if I, master and teacher, have served you by washing your feet, read.
You also ought to wash one another's feet.
You also ought to wash one another's feet. You also ought to serve one another. You also ought to put them before yourself. Do you understand, Mishpaka, that this is the living Torah? He is the living Torah, teaching us how to guard Torah, how to be individual Torah made flesh. He in this act is teaching us how to love our neighbor as ourselves. This is the ancient way. This is the ancient way. Putting them before yourself, irrespective of how you feel, irrespective of how your flesh feels, irrespective of the affliction of the flesh, irrespective of persecution, irrespective of what's going on in your life, irrespective if you lose all your possessions, irrespective if you're thrown in the prison like Yahusuf, irrespective if you're thrown in the prison like the taught ones, irrespective of any of this, you love them as you love yourself, and you put them before yourself, even to death. This is what it looks like to love your neighbor as yourself. And this level of love, this level of righteousness, this level of service cannot be accomplished in this. It can't be accomplished in this. It can't be accomplished in the flesh. You see, that's perfection. That there, you want to see what perfection looks like? That's perfection. That's perfection. That's meekness. That's humility. I need to say this again. Yahuwah in flesh, girded his loins, washed the feet of his taught ones, and dried them, teaching you and I how to truly guard the Torah, how to truly guard the Torah, how to truly put others before yourself, how to truly love your neighbor as you love yourself. In ahab, in action. In ahaba, a noun. a place and person, a thing, something you can touch, taste, and feel, and see. What else does it say, little one?
For I gave you an example that you should do as I have done to you. Truly, truly, I say to you, a servant is not greater than his master, nor is an emissary greater than he who sent him. If you know these teachings, blessed are you if you do them.
Blessed, Baruch, are you if you do them. Do what? If you serve one another. I told you, Abba's told us that this is the servant's road. This is the servant's road. You want to be perfect? Serve. We must serve one another. We must serve one another. But you can't serve. One can't properly serve anyone. What is it? Little one, go back to the beginning of that. What does it say? What does it say? Go to the beginning. I just want you to read one thing. What does it say?
And before the festival.
And before the festival,
of Pesach.
Yes.
Yahushua, knowing that his hour had come.
Yahushua, knowing that his hour had come.
That he should move out of this world to the Father.
That he should move out of this world to the Father.
Having loved his own who were in the world.
Having loved his own who were in the world. Having loved his own. Service is love. And this level of love that he requires and that he gave an example of, one cannot do unless they are operating in the same rule in which he operated in. This is perfection. This is the ancient way. This is what you see in Yahushua. This is what you see in Abraham and Ishaq and Yaakov and all the righteous fathers. This is what you see. And if we cannot have this same testimony, we're not in the perfect way. We're not in the perfect way. Verse 35, little one.
Okay. By this shall all know that you are my taught ones, if you have love for one another.
By this all shall know that you are my taught ones. Listen, this goes to the four corners of the earth. You are not identified as a Yashalim by your zitzits, by your skin color, by the wearing of a turban or linen garments, by your genealogy, by your knowledge of the Abarite tongue. This is not what identifies us as children of Elohim. What identifies us as children of Elohim is righteousness, doing righteousness. And one cannot do righteousness unless they have the root of righteousness. Righteousness is love. Righteousness is love. This is what identifies us. This is that fruit that identifies his chosen children. This is what identifies us. Look around, Yasha'al. Look around. We are living in the time that it reads in the 24th chapter of Matat Yahu. That in the end times, because sin will increase, because crime will increase, the love of many will wax cold. The love of many will grow cold. This is where we're at. This is where we're at. There are many who say they love Yasha'al, but then they'll go behind their brother's back and they'll slander him. They will see their brother in need and close their fists. They will see their brother in need of encouragement, and instead of encouraging him, they will stomp him while he's down. You will know them by their fruit. You will know them by their fruit. They're full of hate. They're full of guile. They're full of self-exaltation. They want to exalt themselves and not Yahuwah. They do their works like the Pharisees to be seen of men. They sing their songs to be seen of men. They do their works to be seen of men. They rap their lyrics to be seen of men. But the love of Yahuwah is not in them. because they have not true aha and ahaba for one another. They have not true aha and ahaba for one another. They're not servants. They're not servants. By this, by love, by righteousness, by Torah, because Torah is love, will you know my taught ones? Will you know my chosen ones? Will you know a firstborn son according to the Ruach? By this, you will know when someone is actually walking the ancient path. Read, little one.
Matthew 22, 36 to 39.
Matthew 22. Matthew, Matat Yahu 22. What verses, little one?
36 to 39.
Verses 36 to 39. Matat Yahu 22. Verses 36
to 39.
To 39.
Teacher, what is the great...
Beginning at verse 36, we read,
Teacher, what is the great command in the Torah?
Yes.
And Yahusha said to him, you shall love Yahuwah your Elohim with all your heart and with all your being and with all your mind.
Yes.
This is the first and great command.
Yes.
And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself.
Barak Yahuwah. Torah is love. Yahuwah is love. You can't obey Torah without being a servant. We are servants to whomever we serve, either to sin unto death or to righteousness unto life. If you can't to obey means to submit. To submit means to serve. We must be servants. This is the servant road. This is the servant road. Torah is love. Torah is being a servant. Being a living Torah is being a servant. Did he not say, I did not come to serve, but I did not come to be served, but to serve? This is the living Torah. To obey Torah means to serve. Torah is the ancient way. It's the ancient path. Torah, to truly guard Torah, we got to come out of the flesh. To truly guard Torah, the Torah must be written upon the heart. Because the level of perfection, of righteousness, and of love that is expected of us, we can't do in this flesh. We cannot do. Read, little one.
Romans 13:8.
Romans, chapter 13, verse 8. Romans, chapter 13, verse 8.
Oh, no one.
Romans, chapter 13, verse 8. Read, little one.
Oh, no one any matter except to love one another.
Yes.
For he who loves another has filled the Torah.
Yes, Torah is the fulfillment. Love, rather, is the fulfillment of Torah. Love is Torah. Torah is love. But you can't love from your wicked flesh, Yasha'al. You can't love from the flesh. You cannot love from the flesh. We don't have it within us. We don't have the capacity within us to display the level of love, of righteousness that is required of us from this wicked flesh. We can't. And if we are not displaying that requisite fruit, we're not on this perfect way. We're not in the perfect way that leads to everlasting life, that leads to Mount Zion. We're not on it. We're not on it. Read, little one.
1 John 5, 1 through 3.
1 John, Yahukanan, Alaf. 1 John, chapter 5, Yahukanan, Alaf. 1 John, chapter 5, Yahukanan, Alaf. Verses 1 through 3.
Everyone who believes.
Verses 1 through 3. Beginning at verse 1. Read, little one.
Everyone who believes that Yahusha is the Mashiach
Yes.
has been born of Elohim.
Yes.
And everyone who loves the one bringing forth also loves the one having been born of him.
Yes.
By this we know that we love the children of Elohim.
Yes.
When we love Elohim and guard his commands.
Oh, and that means to be a servant. To love Yahuwah means to be his servant. To love one another, I pray you're getting this, means to be one another's servant. Wife, you say you love your husband. Serve him. Serve him. Husband, you say you love your Aisha. Serve her. Serve her. You say you love me. You to serve me. If I say I love you, I am to serve you. I am to serve you. Akuf, you say you love your sister. Serve her. Serve her. Serve one another. This is what it means to obey the commandments. They don't hear. You are either a servant, you are a servant of whomever you serve. Either sin unto death or righteousness unto life. Righteousness is Torah. You can't obey Torah without being a servant. You can't love one another without serving one another. This is the ancient way. This is the ancient path. This is the ancient path that leads to everlasting life. What Joseph did, what Yahushua did, was serve. He served. This is what he did. But his motivation was love. He was able to do what he did because he loved Yahuwah and because he loved his brothers. He was able to serve and bear imprisonment because he loved Yahuwah and because he loved his brother. He was able to bear their crookedness, their crimes, and cover their crimes as love covers a multitude of crimes. Because he loved and because he was a servant, because he had a circumcised heart, and because he had the Ruach of Yahuwah living inside of him. Read, little one.
For this is the love for Elohim.
Yes.
That we guard his commands.
Yes.
And his commands are not heavy.
This is the love of Elohim. That we guard his commands. And his commands are not burdensome. This is the ancient path. Being a servant. Being a servant. A servant does not have his own will. A servant does not have his or her own desire. His only desire is to do the desire and the will of his master. If a servant seeks his own will and his own desire, he or she is no longer a servant, but they are their own master. They are their own master. Read, little one.
Matthew 20, 20 through 28.
Matat Yahu, Matthew 20, verses
20 to 28.
20 through 28. Matthew, Matat Yahu, chapter 20, beginning at verse 20.
Then the mother of.
Reading down through verse 28. Matat Yahu, Matthew, chapter 20, beginning at verse 20. Reading down through verse 28. Beginning at verse 20, we read.
Then the mother of the sons of Zabdai came to him with her sons, bowing down and making a request of him. And he said to her, "What do you wish?" She said to him, "Command that these two sons of mine sit one on your right hand and the other on your left in your reign." But Yahusha answering her said, "You do not know what you ask. Are you able to drink the cup that I am about to drink and to be immersed with the immersion that I am immersed with?" They said to him, "We are able." And he said to them, "You shall indeed drink my cup, and you shall be immersed with the immersion that I am immersed with. But to sit on my right hand and on my left is not mine to give, but it is for those for whom it has been prepared by my Father." And when the 10 heard it, they were displeased at the two brothers. But Yahusha called them near and said, You know that the rulers of the nations are masters over them.
You know that the rulers of the nations are masters over them. Read.
And those who are great exercise authority over them.
And those who are great exercise authority over them.
But it shall not be so among you.
But it shall not be so among you.
But whoever wishes to become great among you.
But whoever wishes to be great among you.
Let him be your servant.
Let him be your servant. Read.
And whoever wishes to be first among you.
And whoever wishes to be first among you.
Let him be your servant.
Let him be your servant.
Even as the son of Adam did not come to be served.
Even as the son of Adam did not come to be served.
But to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many.
But to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. See, this is a testament and a benchmark of a firstborn son. You see, yes, we have roles and we have responsibilities within the assembly of YAHUAH'S. Sure we do. We have roles and responsibilities within the assembly of YAHUAH'S. Yahuwah has called me to shepherd. That is the role, that is the mantle in which he has given me. But I pray that you understand by now that I am your servant. I am your servant. I do not exalt myself above you. I am his humble servant and I am your servant. Just as my master, who was Yahuwah in flesh, did not exalt himself over his brethren. Although they respected his role, they respected him as master, they respected him as teacher, yet he did not exalt himself above them. We see this in the tender affection of Yahuchanan that he had for his master when he was laying his bosom upon his chest. And he was the one that Yahusha loved. He was a loving and gentle man. Although he had a role, although he had a responsibility, a heavy mantle, as he has given me a heavy mantle, I am your servant. I am your servant. This is what we are called to do, is to serve one another. To serve one another. By this will they know that we are his taught ones. By our love for one another. This means that we serve one another. This is righteousness. This is perfection. This is Torah. This is the ancient way. This is the ancient way, because the Ancient of Days, although he is our creator, the psalmist tells us that he humbles himself to receive the praises of messengers and the things upon the earth. He humbles himself. He still humbles himself on his throne to receive the praises of messengers and the things from the earth. We've got to be servants, Mishpaka. This is the perfect way. We cannot exalt ourselves. We got to serve one another. We got to love one another. This is the ancient way. This is that level of righteousness that is expected of us, being a servant and loving one another as we love ourselves and putting each other before ourselves, as we've seen in the example of Yahusuf, and as we've seen in the example of all of our righteous fathers, and as we have seen in the example of Yahushua HaMashiach, Yahuwah in flesh himself. This is the ancient way. This is the ancient way. And this is contrary to the flesh, Mashpaka. This is the way that's contrary to the flesh. The flesh doesn't want to do this. The flesh will try and keep you from doing this. The flesh will want you to exalt yourself. The flesh will want you to exalt yourselves above your brethren. The flesh will cause you to look down on your brethren, to think that you're better than your brethren. This is what the flesh wants you to do. This is the way of the wicked one, because the flesh belongs to the wicked one. That's the broad way. That leads to destruction. That's that rotten fruit. That's that rotten fruit. The ancient path, the way of perfection, the perfect way, is the servant's way, the lowly man's way, the meek, the lowly, the humble way, as our Father is meek and lowly and humble. Hashatan is not meek and lowly and humble. It was pride that got him kicked off the mountain of Yahuwah as his priest, as his Kahan Gadol. It was pride that got him kicked off. He is the master of the flesh. Those who operate in accordance with the flesh are his servants. But those who truly humble themselves as servants, as lowly servants, and walk the ancient way, as their Father is the Ancient of Days, and as he humbles and lowers himself to receive the things, the praises of Shamayim and the things of the earth. This is what identifies us, Mashpaka. This is righteousness. This is righteousness. This is the ancient way. This is the ancient way. This is what Yahushua displayed. You can't do that. You can't do that. He showed us he was a servant. He was a servant. He was a servant. Yahushua was a servant. Abraham was a servant. Ishak was a servant. Yaakov was a servant. They were all servants. All servants. As our Father continues to serve you and I. Read, little one.
Matthew 25:13-23.
Matthew, Matat Yahu 25. Just flip the page to chapter 25. Matat Yahu, Matthew chapter 25, verses
13-23.
13 to 23. Matat Yahu chapter 25, beginning at verse 13, reading down through verse 23. Beginning at verse 13, we read,
Watch therefore, because you do not know the day nor the hour in which the Son of Adam is coming.
Yes.
For it is like a man going from home who called his own servants and delivered his possessions to them.
Who called his own what?
Servants.
Who called his own what?
Servants.
Who called his own what?
Servants.
Servants. Servants. We must be servants. We must serve one another. This is the ancient way. The ancient way. Yahushua came to restore the ancient path, the way of the fathers. He came to restore it and teach it. Read that again.
Like a man going from home who called his own servants.
Who called his own servants, read.
And delivered his possessions to them.
And delivered his possessions unto them. What is his possessions? One another. One another. We are his possessions. One another. And so he delivered us to one another. To serve one another. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Come on, read, little one.
And to one he gave 5 talents.
Yes.
And to another 2.
Yes.
And to another 1.
Yes.
To each according to his own ability. And went from home. And he who had received the 5 talents went and worked with them. And made another 5 talents.
Yes.
In the same way he with 2 also.
Yes.
He gained 2 more.
Yes.
But he who had received the 1 went away and dug in the ground.
Yes.
And hid the silver of his master.
And
after a long time.
Oh, do you not understand that we are his treasured possession? Gain some understanding. We are his treasured possession. We are called to serve one another, to teach the Torah, to spread the Bashorah, to be reconciliations, to be reconcilers of the everlasting covenant. In doing so, serving one another. Not to bury his treasured possession. Not to bury his treasured possession. But to serve one another in meekness and humility. Come on, little one. Give him some more understanding. Read, please.
And after a long time, the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them.
Oh, what have you done with my possession? With my treasured possession? What have you done with it? Read.
And he who had received 5 talents came and brought 5 other talents. Saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents.
Yes.
See, I have gained 5 more talents besides them.
Yes.
And his master said to him, Well done, good and trustworthy servant.
Go, well done, my good and trustworthy what?
Servant.
Servant. Read.
You were trustworthy over a little. I shall set you over much. I
shall make you a ruler over much. I shall make you a ruler over much. See, if you trustworthy with a few of my possessions, my precious possessions, my treasured possessions, guess what? I am going to exalt you, servant. You ain't going to be a servant in the kingdom. You going to rule. I'm going to give you a crown. And you going to be a ruler over many because you have been trustworthy over a few of my treasured possessions. You have served them faithfully. You have served them trustworthily. And in serving them, you served me. Read, little one. Come on.
Enter into the joy of your master.
Yes.
Then he who had received 2 talents came and said, Master, you delivered to me 2 talents. See, I have gained 2 more talents.
Yes, you've been trustworthy over my possession. Read.
His master said to him, Well done, good and trustworthy servant.
Well done, my good and trustworthy servant. Read.
You were trustworthy over a little, I shall set you over much.
You were trustworthy over a few of my treasured possession. Now enter in, wear your crown, sit on your throne. I'm going to make you a ruler over many because you were trustworthy over a few of my treasured possession. You served them, and in serving them, you served me. Read, little one.
Enter into the joy of your master.
Yes.
And that's it for that one.
Oh, I think we missed one. I think we need to go back, little one, to Matthew 25. We need to tell them about that wicked servant.
Okay, you want me to find it?
Yeah, go back to Matthew 25. We got to get that wicked servant who wasn't a servant, who didn't serve, who didn't serve his brother. Okay. Come on. Little one didn't forget nothing, y'all. She didn't forget nothing. She didn't forget it. She didn't forget nothing. And I take that fault upon myself, Barak Yahuwah.
Okay, and the one, 24.
Come on, read.
Okay. And the one who had received the 1 talent also came and said, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you have not sown, and gathering where you have not scattered seed.
Yes.
And being afraid, I went and hid your talent in the ground.
He didn't serve. He didn't serve. He didn't take care of his treasured possession. Read.
See, you have what is yours. And his master answering said to him, You wicked and lazy servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sown.
Wait a minute. You wicked and lazy servant. In other words, you a lazy servant. In other words, you didn't serve. You were lazy. You didn't serve. You didn't serve your fellow man, your brother and your sister, and you didn't serve me. You wicked, lazy servant. What's going to happen to him, little one?
Okay. You knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered. Then you should have put my silver with the bankers, and at my coming I would have received back my own with interest. Therefore take away the talent from him and give it to him who possesses 10 talents. For to everyone who possesses more shall be given, and he shall have overflowingly. But from him who does not possess, even what he possesses shall be taken away.
Shall be taken away. Ain't no way around service. Ain't no way around it. There is no way around serving one another. You want to be exalted? We can only be exalted in the kingdom from being a servant. This is the example that Yahushua gave us. This is the example that Yahushua gave us. If you want to be exalted, the only way to be exalted is through service. Indeed, for those who humble themselves, they shall be exalted. And those who exalt themselves, they shall be humbled. The only way in is through service. This is the righteous way. This is the perfect way. This is righteousness. This is Torah. Torah is serving one another. Serving one another. This is the ancient path. This is the perfect way. Read, little one.
We got Philippians 2, 1 through 12.
Philippians 2. Philippians chapter 2. Philippians chapter 2.
1 through 12.
Verses 1 through 12.
If then.
Philippians chapter 2. Verses 1 through 12. Philippians chapter 2, verses 1 through 12, beginning at verse 1. Read, little one.
If then there is any encouragement in Mashiach, if any comfort of love,
yes,
if any fellowship of Ruach,
yes,
if any affection and compassion,
yes,
make my joy complete by being of the same mind,
yes,
having the same love,
having what?
Having the same love,
having what?
Having the same love,
love for one another. How do we show our love for one another? We serve one another. Read.
One in being and of purpose.
Yes.
Doing none at all through selfishness.
Yes.
Or self-conceit.
Yes.
But in humility.
Yeah, what?
In humility.
Oh, you can't call yourself a servant and you have not humility. A servant is humble. You can't serve without humbling yourself. No, you can't. Read, little one.
Consider others better than yourself.
Put them before yourself. Get out of your flesh and put them before yourself. You call yourself a servant? You call yourself a servant of Yahuwah? Oh, you put your brother and your sister before yourself and serve them. This is the ancient way. Read, little one.
Each one should look out not only for his own interest,
yes,
but also for the interest of others.
Yes.
For let this mind be in you.
Let this mind be in you.
Which was also in Mashiach Yahushua.
Which was also in Yahushua Mashiach.
Who being in the form of Elohim.
Who being in the form of Elohim, who did not come to be served, but to serve. Read.
Did not regard equality with Elohim a matter to be grasped, but emptied himself, taking the form of a servant.
Taking what?
Taking the form of a servant.
Taking what?
Taking the form of a servant.
You ain't getting in unless you're a servant. This is the ancient way. This is the servant's road, the back road, the unpopular road. You ain't getting in unless you're a servant. That's the only way. Everyone on that broad path that leads to destruction, all of those goats who are on that broad path are not humble, are not servants, and they're being led to destruction. This road, this narrow road, there are only sheep on it. A lowly, meek, humble, and docile sheep, whom when it is being led to the slaughter, will not struggle, will not open up its mouth, not even as its throat is being slit. A meek and humble and docile sheep. This is that road, that servant's road, that broad road, that rotten fruit, that rotten tree, that imperfect road, those who say that no one can be perfect. That broad road that's full of goats. I mean, there's a traffic jam on it. It's barely moving. It's bumper to bumper goat with goats. Stubborn and stiff-necked goats who will not humble themselves and who will not serve one another. Oh, that road is crowded. It's very crowded. It's very crowded. And destruction is coming to everybody on that road, unless they go through a spiritual metamorphosis and go and enter into a cocoon as a goat and come out as a sheep walking this ancient narrow path. If they don't undergo this spiritual metamorphosis, which is to say, to receive the Ruach of Yahuwah from on high, they're going to remain on that road of destruction and they will die. They will die. Read, little one.
And came to be in the likeness of men.
Yes.
And having been found in fashion as a man. He humbled himself.
He did what?
He humbled himself.
He did what?
He humbled himself.
As a servant, he humbled himself. Read.
And became obedient unto death.
Yes.
Death even of a stake.
Yes.
Elohim therefore has highly exalted him.
Yes.
And given him the name which is above every name.
Yes.
That at the name of Yahushua,
yes,
every knee shall bow,
yes,
of those in heaven and of those on the earth, and those under the earth,
yes,
and every tongue shall confess.
What?
That every tongue shall confess.
Yes.
That Yahushua Mashiach is master.
To the esteem of the Father. You want to be exalted? Become a servant. Become a servant. But our exaltation is not in flesh. Our exaltation is not of this world. In this world, we must be servants. Why? Because Adam, our father, sold us into servitude. That's the judgment. That's the judgment. That's the judgment. But we do not have to be no longer have to be a servant of Hashatan and Mishraim. Those who are of the regeneration, who have received the Ruach HaKadosh, the seal of redemption, the down payment, we now become servants of righteousness. We become servants of Elohim. Either way, we must be servants. We must be servants. And only as servants from that position will we be exalted to rulers, to receiving a crown, to sitting on a throne, in the same way that Joseph, YAHUAH'S, served and was exalted and received the crown. And the same example of Yahushua, who served and was highly exalted, who is a representation of you and I. Read, little one.
To the esteem of Elohim the Father, so that my beloved, as you always obeyed, not only in my presence, but now much rather in my absence, work out your own deliverance with reverence and trembling.
Work out your own deliverance with reverence and trembling. You reverence him? Do you reverence him, Mashpaka? Do you truly reverence him? Do you truly reverence him? Are you cognizant of the fact that his eyes are ever upon us? That he knows even our innermost thoughts. That he knows the words that are formed on our lips before they are spoken. That there is nothing hidden from him, that everything is naked before him. Are you cognizant of this? Do you reverence him? Because if you truly reverence him, you will serve one another. You will become a servant, a lowly, meek, and humble servant, if you truly reverence the Father. Read, little one.
1 Corinthians 13, 1 through 13.
1 Corinthians 13. 1 Corinthians 13, we're going to read this chapter in its entirety. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, we're going to read it in its entirety. In its entirety. In its entirety. But prior to 1 Corinthians chapter 13, he's talking about the spiritual gifts. And in the last verse of 1 Corinthians chapter 12, Shaul declares that we are to earnestly seek the spiritual gifts. But yet I show you a more excellent way. A more excellent way. The operative word here is way. We are in the way. Torah is the way, the truth, and the life. The ancient path is the way, the truth, and the life. It is Torah. It is the more excellent way. The more excellent way. Because we can't serve one another without love. You can't serve one another without love. We can't serve Yahuwah without loving him. We can't serve one another without love. Not coming from this flesh. The flesh isn't capable of the level of love, the level of righteousness that is not only expected of us, but is required. This flesh is not capable of giving that kind of love. We must be firstborn according to the Ruach. No different than the example of the righteous fathers we have been observing. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, beginning at verse 1, we read,
if I speak with the tongues of men and of messengers, but do not have love, I have become as a sounding brass or a clinging cymbal.
Coming as a sounding brass or a clinging cymbal. Read.
And if I have nabuah and know all secrets and all knowledge,
yes.
And if I have all belief so
yes.
as to remove mountains,
yes.
but do not have love,
yes.
I am none at all.
Some of you are full of knowledge as this goes out to the four corners of the Arabs. Some of you are full of knowledge. Indeed, knowledge, gnosis, is your Elohim. But you don't know the more excellent way because you do not have the Ruach of Yahuwah in you. You cannot love without having Yahuwah in us because Yahuwah is love. You're full of knowledge and you're puffed up. Gnosis is your Elohim. You're far from Yahuwah. You don't love your brother as you love yourself. You only speak it with your lips, but your fruit is rotten. And your works are not hidden from him. They're not hidden from him. He sees you. You are not a servant of Yahuwah. You're a servant of the wicked one. You are a servant of Hasatan. Indeed, you are his seed. Two manner of people. Either we're seed of Yahuwah or we're seed of the wicked one. And the seed of Yahuwah are identified by what? By this they will know that you are my taught ones, that you belong to me by your love for one another, not according to the flesh, but according to the Ruach. This is righteousness. This is perfection. This is servanthood. Read, little one.
And if I give out all my possessions to feed the poor, and if I give my body to be burned but do not have love, I am not profited at all. Love is patient.
Love is what?
Love is patient.
Love is what?
Love is patient.
Love is patient. We've been talking about patience and how patience is an active ingredient in perfection, but it all begins with love. Indeed, the fruit of the Ruach are all the ingredients in perfection. And it's all predicated upon love, meekness, humility, servitude. It's all predicated upon this. Love is patient. Love is what?
Is kind.
Is kind. We're talking about the fruit of the Ruach. All your fruit will tell what type of tree you are. You don't have his Ruach, you're too impatient. You don't have his Ruach, you are not kind. You're not truly kind. You're not. You do kind deeds to be seen by men. You're not truly kind. Behind closed doors, you're not kind. You're not kind to your wife. You're not kind to your children. And you're not truly kind to your brother or your sister. You're not truly kind. You are the seed of the wicked one. Read, little one.
Love does not envy.
Love does not envy. Many of you are full of envy. You're full of envy for one another. You're quarrelsome. You're like crabs in a bucket, trying to pull one another down so that you can get to the top of the bucket because you want to be esteemed. You want all the esteem. And you envy anyone who Yahuwah truly speaks through. You envy them and you slander them. You stab them in the back. You speak all kinds of unrighteousness and hateful things against them, displaying what manner of man you are, or woman you are, displaying what manner of fruit you have. Read, little one.
Love does not boast.
Love does not boast. Love does not boast. Love does not brag. Love is not always talking about himself or herself, talking about what they're doing or what Yahuwah has done for them or what he has spoken to them or what he has revealed to them in scripture. Love is not always boasting and not always talking. Love is calm. Love is quiet. Love is gentle. Love is perfect. Read, little one.
Is not puffed up.
It's not puffed up.
Does not behave indecently.
Does not behave indecently.
Does not seek his own.
Does not seek his own. It's not self-seeking.
Is not provoked.
But puts others before itself. And it's not easily provoked. Read.
Reckons not the evil.
Reckons not the evil. It does not rejoice in evil. Read.
Does not rejoice over the unrighteous.
Does not rejoice over the unrighteous.
But rejoices in truth.
But rejoices.
It covers all.
It covers all.
Believes
Love
all.
covers a multitude of sin. It covers all.
Believes all.
It believes all. You can't even believe the word of Yahuwah unless you love him. You can't truly believe him unless you love him. Because if you love him, then the love of Yahuwah is in you. And if the love of Yahuwah is in you, then you know that because he loves you, that what he has spoken over you shall come to pass. Love believes every word that proceeds from the mouth of Yahuwah. And if you believe every word that proceeds from the mouth of Yahuwah, and if you love him, you will obey that which you believe. Come on, read, little one.
Expects all.
Expects all.
Endures all.
Endures all. Indeed, those who endure to the end shall be delivered. That's love.
Love never fails.
Love never fails.
And whether there be prophecies,
yes,
they shall be inactive.
They shall be inactive.
Or tongues,
yes,
they shall cease.
They shall cease.
Or knowledge,
yes,
it shall be inactive.
Yes.
For we know in part, and we prophesy in part.
Yes.
But when that which is perfect has come,
perfect love, perfect love, perfect love has come. Read.
Then that which is in part shall be inactive. When I was a child, I spoke as a child.
Yes.
I thought as a child.
Yes.
I reasoned as a child.
Yes.
But when I became a man, I did away with childish matters.
Yes.
For now we see in a mirror dimly.
Yes.
But then face to face. Now I know in part. But then I shall know as I also have been known.
Yes.
And now belief, expectation, and love remain.
Yes.
These three.
What is the greatest?
But the greatest of these is love.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. To serve means to love. We show Yahuwah we love him by guarding his commandments. We show one another we love them by guarding the commandments. This means to serve. This means to serve. Being a servant begins with love. And the level of love, which is righteousness, that is expected of us, can only come from the Father. It can't come from the flesh. The level of sacrifice and love and righteousness that is expected of us, that is expected of the firstborn according to the Ruach, those who are walking the perfect way, it cannot be accomplished in the flesh. It can only be accomplished in Ruach. And this is the example that we have been watching, that we have been looking upon. This is the example of Yahusha. This is the example of Asenath. This is the example of Yahusha. This is the example of Abraham and of Ishaq and of Yaakov. This is the example of Eber and of Shem and of Noah and of Methuselah, as they preached for 120 years the message of repentance, because they did not want mankind to perish, because they loved mankind and because they loved their father. This is the example of righteous Noach. This is the example of all of our righteous fathers, of all of them, and of all our righteous mothers. And so now that we have this understanding, that we have this understanding ingrained that we've got to be servants. We've got to be servants. Let's now continue to look at the example of a firstborn according to the flesh, of one of Yahuwah's righteous servants. Of one of Yahuwah's righteous servants, otherwise known as Yahusha. Otherwise known as Yahusha. We pick it up again looking at Yahusha from the book of Jasher, more accurately Yashar, but commonly called Jasher, chapter 41. Chapter 41. How are we looking for time, little one?
119.
Barak Yahuwah. Jasher, more accurately called Yashar, the 41st chapter. The 41st chapter. Let's look at this firstborn according to the Ruach, this perfect man, this righteous servant, this righteous servant. chapter 41, beginning at verse 1, we read,
And at the revolution of the year, the sons of Yaakov journeyed from Shechem, and they came to Karum to their father Ishkak, and they dwelt there. But their flocks and herds they fed daily in Shechem, for there was there in those days good and fat pasture. And Yaakov and his sons and all their household dwelt in the valley of Karum. And it was in those days in that year, being the 106th year of the life of Yaakov, in the 10th year of Yaakov, coming from Padam Aram, that Laah, the woman of Yaakov, died. She was 51 years old when she died in Karum. And Yaakov and his sons buried her in the cave of the field of Machpelah, which is in Karum, which Abraham had brought from the children of Koth for the possessions of a burial place. And the sons of Yaakov dwelt with their father in the valley of Karum, and all the inhabitants of the land knew their strength, and their fame went throughout the land. And Yehusaph, the son of Yaakov, and his brother Benjamin, the son of Rachel, the woman of Yaakov, were yet young in those days, and did not go out with their brethren during their battles in all the cities of the Amorims. And when Yehusaph saw the strength of his brethren and their greatness, he praised them and extolled them. But he ranked himself greater than them and extolled himself above them. And Yaakov his father also loved him more than any of his sons, for he was a son of his old age, and through his love toward him he made him a coat of many colors. And when Yehusaph saw that his father loved him more than his brothers, he continued to exalt himself above his brethren, and he brought unto his father evil reports concerning them. And the sons of Yaakov, seeing the whole of Yehusaph's conduct toward them, and that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak peaceably to him all the days. And Yehusaph was 17 years old, and he was still magnifying himself above his brethren, and thought of raising himself above them.
He who exalts himself shall be humbled. Read.
And at that time he dreamed a dream, and he came unto his brothers and told them his dream. And he said unto them, I dreamed a dream, and behold, we were all binding sheaves in the field, and my sheaf rose and placed itself upon the ground, and your sheaves surrounded it and bowed down to it. And his brethren answered him and said unto him, What means this dream that you did dream? Did you imagine in your heart to reign or rule over us? And he still came and told the thing to his father Yaakov. And Yaakov kissed Yehusaph when he heard these words from his mouth. And Yaakov blessed Yehusaph. And when the sons of Yaakov saw that their father had blessed Yehusaph and kissed him, and that he loved him exceedingly, they became jealous of him and hated him the more. And after this, Yehusaph dreamed another dream, and related the dream to his father in the presence of his brethren. And Yehusaph said unto his father and brethren, Behold, I have again dreamed a dream. And behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars bowed down to me. And his father heard the words of Yehusaph and his dream. And seeing that his brethren hated Yehusaph on account of this matter, Yaakov therefore rebuked Yehusaph before his brethren on account of this thing, saying, What means this dream which you have dreamed? And this magnifying yourself before your brethren who are older than you are? Do you imagine in your heart that I and your mother and your 11 brethren will come and bow down to you, that you speak these things? And his brethren were jealous of him on account of his words and dreams, and they continued to hate him. And Yaakov reserved the dream in his heart. And the sons of Yaakov went one day to feed their father's flock in Shechem, for they were still herdsmen in those days. And while the sons of Yaakov were that day feeding in Shechem, they delayed, and the time of gathering the cattle was past, and they had not arrived. And Yaakov saw that his sons were delayed in Shechem, and Yaakov said within himself, Perchance the people of Shechem has risen up to fight against them. Therefore they have delayed coming this day. And Yaakov called Yehusaph his son and commanded him, saying, Behold, your brethren are feeding in Shechem this day, and behold, they have not yet come back. Go now therefore and see where they are, and bring me word back concerning the welfare of your brethren and the welfare of the flock. And Yaakov sent his son Yahusuf to the valley of Karun, and Yahusuf came for his brothers to Shechem, and could not find them. And Yahusuf went about the field which were near Shechem to see where his brothers had turned. And he missed his road in the wilderness, and knew not which way he should go. And a messenger of Yahuwah found him wandering in the road toward the field. And Yahusuf said unto the messenger of Yahuwah, I seek my brethren, have you not heard where they are feeding? And the messenger of Yahuwah said unto Yahusuf, I saw your brethren feeding here, and I heard them say they would go down to Dathan. And Yahusuf hearkened to the voice of the messenger of Yahuwah, and he went to his brethren in Dathan, and he found them in Dathan feeding the flock. And Yahusuf advanced to his brethren, and before he had come nigh unto them, they had resolved to slay him. And Shemaun said to his brother, Behold, the man of dreams is coming unto us this day. And now therefore come and let us kill him and cast him in one of the pits that are in the wilderness. And when his father shall seek him from us, we shall say an evil beast has devoured him. And Ra'aban heard the words of his brethren concerning Yahusuf. And he said unto them, You should not do this thing, for how can we look up to our father Yaakov? Cast him into this pit to die there, but stretch not forth a hand upon him to spill his blood. And Ra'aban said this in order to deliver him from their hands, to bring him back to his father. And when Yahusuf came to his brethren, he sat before them, and they rose up upon him and seized him and smote him to the earth and stripped the coat of many colors which he had on. And they took him and cast him into a pit, and in the pit there was no water, but serpents and scorpions. And Yahusuf was afraid of the serpents and scorpions that were in the pit. And Yahusuf cried out with a loud voice, and Yahuwah hid the serpents and scorpions in the side of the pit, and they did no harm unto Yahusuf. And Yahusuf called out from the pit to his brethren and said unto them, What have I done unto you, and in what have I committed crime? Why do you not fear Yahuwah concerning me? Am I not of your bone and flesh, and is not Yaakov your father, my father? Why do you do this thing unto me this day? And how will you be able to look up to our father Yaakov? And he continued to cry out and to call unto his brethren from the pit. And he said, O Yehuda, Shemaun, and Lewi, my brethren, lift me up from this place of darkness in which you have placed me, and come this day to have compassion on me, ye children of Yahuwah and sons of Yaakov, my father. And if I have committed crime unto you, are you not the sons of Abraham, Ishkak, and Jacob? If they saw an orphan, they had compassion on him. Or one that was hungry, they gave him bread to eat. Or one that was thirsty, they gave him water to drink. Or one that was naked, they covered him with garments. And how then will you withhold your pity from your brother? For I am the flesh of your bones, and I have committed, if I have sinned unto you, surely you will do this on account of my father. And Yahusuf spoke these words from the pit, and his brethren could not listen to him, nor incline their ears to the words of Yahusuf. And Yahusuf was crying and weeping in the pit. And Yahusuf said, Oh, that my father knew this day the act which my brothers have done unto me, and the words which they have this day spoken unto me. And all his brethren heard his cries and weeping in the pit. And his brethren went and removed themselves from the pit, so that they might not hear the cries of Yahusuf and his weeping.
Barak Yahuwah. So here we see that Yahusuf, as a young boy, had received some dreams, and he had begun to exalt himself as a young child, as a young boy. And the scriptures declares that he who exalts himself shall be humbled. Shall be humbled. And we know the story. We're getting ready to read where Yahusuf was humbled because there was a great mantle. There was a great mantle that Yahuwah had placed on Yahusuf. And in order to properly wear that mantle, Yahusuf had to be a servant. He had to be a servant. Some of these mantles that Yahuwah places on us, there are many times when he has to humble us first before placing these mantles on us, because no matter the mantle, as he's been speaking, no matter the mantle, we must be a servant of all. No one wore a greater mantle than Yahushua HaMashiach, but he was a servant of all. And so Yahusuf, no different, had to be taught, had to be humbled, and had to be taught how to be a servant. This is not strange. We've seen this with Malak Dawood, who was what? Who was anointed as a young boy. As a young boy, Malak Dawood was anointed, but it wasn't until he was age 30 that he began to rule. The time in between, Dawood suffered humiliation. He was humbled. He was humbled and taught how to humble himself and to be meek, and to taught how to be a meek and humble servant. And so indeed, he was a servant king. He was a servant sovereign, but he had to be taught how to be humbled, and he had to be humbled in order to be taught how to be humbled, because a great mantle was going to be placed upon him. We see this also, lastly, with Masha, who left Mashraim as a prince and went into the wilderness of Midian, where he served his father-in-law, Ithro, where he served his father-in-law, Ithro, for 40 years. For 40 years, he was humbled out there and taught to be a servant and taught to be meek, and he tended sheep out there for 40 years because there was a great mantle that was going to be placed on his life. Indeed, Yahusha says in the Torah, Yahuwah declares in the word of Yahuwah in the Torah that Masha, in the 12th chapter of Numbers of Bamidbar, that Masha was the most humble man in all the earth. And so indeed, although he had a mantle, a heavy mantle to wear, it does not supersede our mantles, irrespective of what that mantle is, whether or not that's being the sovereign of Mashraim, whether or not that's being the sovereign of Yasha'al, whether or not that's being his chosen servant who is sent to get his people out of Mashraim. Irrespective of the mantle, we must be servants of all. That must be first and foremost. We must be servants of all. We must be servants of all. And before being exalted, even if that means being the sovereign of Yasha'al, even if that means being second in command of Mashraim, even if that means being his servant, his chosen servant, to go into Egypt, into Mashraim, to call his people out. Irrespective of what that means, and all this being a foreshadowing of that servanthood that we are to walk throughout our lives, if we expect to be exalted, if we expect to be exalted in the kingdom, to receive crowns and thrones, we must be servants. We must be servants. We must be servants. We must walk as meek and humble servants if we expect to be exalted. Read, little one.
Jasher 42.
Jasher chapter 42. Yashar chapter 42.
Okay. And they went and sat on the opposite side, about the distance of a bow shot, and they sat there to eat bread. And while they were eating, they held counsel together what was to be done with him, whether to slay him or to bring him back to his father. They were holding the counsel when they lifted up their eyes and saw, behold, there was a company of Ishmaelim coming at a distance by the road of Gilead, going down to Mitzrayim. And Yehudah said unto them, what gain will it be to us if we slay our brother? Perchance Elohim will require him from us. This then is the counsel proposed concerning him, which you shall do unto him. Behold, this company of Ishmaelim going down to Mitzrayim. Now therefore come, let us dispose of him to them, and let not our hand be upon him. And they will lead him along with them, and he will be lost amongst the people of the land, and we will not put him to death with our own hands. And the proposal pleased his brethren, and they did according to the word of Yehudah. And while they were discoursing about this matter, and before the company of Ishmaelim had come up to them, 7 trading men of Midian passed by them. And as they passed, they were thirsty. And they lifted up their eyes and saw the pit in which Yahusha was immured. And they looked, and behold, every species of bird was upon him. And the Midianaim ran to the pit to drink water, for they thought that it contained water. And on coming before the pit, they heard the voice of YAHUAH'S crying and weeping in the pit. And they looked down into the pit, and they saw, and behold, there was a youth of comely appearance and well favored. And they called unto him and said, Who are you, and who brought you hither, and who placed you in this pit in the wilderness? And they all assisted to raise up YAHUAH'S, and they drew him out and brought him up from the pit, and took him and went away on their journey, and passed by his brethren. And these said unto them, Why do you do this, to take our servant from us and go away? Surely we placed this youth in the pit because he rebelled against us. And you come and bring him up and lead him away. Now then give us back our servant. And the Midian answered and said unto the sons of Yaakov, Is this your servant, or does this man attend you? Perchance you are all his servants, for he is more commonly and well favored than any of you. And why do you all speak falsely unto us? Now therefore we will not listen to your words, nor attend to you. For we found the youth in the pit in the wilderness, and we took him. We will therefore go on. And all the sons of Yaakov approached them, and rose up to them, and said unto them, Give us back our servant, and why will you all die by the edge of the sword? And the Midian cried out against them, and they drew their swords and approached to fight with the sons of Yaakov. And behold, Shammah rose up from his seat against them, and sprang upon the ground, and drew his sword, and approached the Midian, and he gave a terrible shout before them, so that his shouting was heard at a distance. And the earth shook at Shammah's shouting, and the Midian were terrified on account of Shammah and the noise of his shouting. And they fell upon their faces and were excessively alarmed. And Shammah said unto them, Truly I am Shammah, the son of Yaakov the Abri, who have only with my brother destroyed the city of Shechem and the cities of the Amorites. So shall Elohim moreover do unto me, that if all your brethren, the people of Midian, and also the kings of Canaan were to come with you, they could not fight against me. Now therefore give us back the youth whom you have taken, lest I give your flesh to the birds of the skies and the beasts of the earth. And the Midian were more afraid of Shammah, and they approached the sons of Yaakov with terror and fright, and with pathetic words, saying, Surely you have said that the young man is your servant, and that he rebelled against you, and therefore you placed him in the pit. What then will you do with the servant who rebels against his master? Now therefore sell him unto us, and we will give you all that you require from him. And Yahuwah was pleased to do this in order that the sons of Yaakov should not slay their brother. And the Midian saw that YAHUAH'S was of a comely appearance and well favored. They desired him in their hearts and were urgent to purchase him from his brethren. And the sons of Yaakov hearkened to the Midian, and they sold their brother YAHUAH'S to them for 20 pieces of silver. And Ra'aban, their brother, was not with them. And the Midian took YAHUAH'S and continued their journey to Galad. They were going along the road, and the Midian repented of what they had done in having purchased the young man. And one said to another, What is this thing that we have done in taking this youth from the Abri, who is of comely appearance and well favored? Perhaps this youth is stolen from the land of the Abrim. And why then have we done this thing? And if he should be sought for and found in our hands, we shall die through him. Now surely hardy and powerful men have sold him to us, the strength of one whom you saw this day. Perhaps they stole him from his land with their might and with their powerful arm, and have therefore sold him to us for the small value which we gave unto them. And while they were discoursing together, they looked, and behold, the company of Ishmael, which was coming at first, and which the sons of Yaakov saw, was advancing toward the Midian. And the Midian said to each other, Come, let us sell this youth to the company of the Ishmael, who are coming towards us, and we will take for him the little that we gave for him, and we will be delivered from his evil. I just need a sip of water. And they did so, and they reached the Ishmaelim, and the Midianite sold Yahusuf to the Ishmaelim for 20 pieces of silver, which they had given for him to his brethren. And the Midianite went on their road to Galad, and the Ishmaelim took Yahusuf, and they let him ride upon one of the camels, and they were leading him to Mitzrayim. And Yahusuf heard that the Ishmaelim were proceeding to Mitzrayim, and Yahusuf lamented and wept at this thing, that he was to be so far removed from the land of Canaan from his father. And he wept bitterly while he was riding upon the camel. And one of their men observed him and made him go down from the camel and walk on foot. And notwithstanding this, Yahusuf continued to cry and weep. And he said, "Oh, my father, my father." And one of the Ishmaelim rose up and smote Yahusuf upon the cheek. And still he continued to weep. And Yahusuf was fatigued in the road and was unable to proceed on account of the bitterness of his soul. And they all smote him and afflicted him in the road. And they terrified him in order that he might cease from weeping. And Yahuwah saw the ambition of Yahusuf and his trouble, and Yahuwah brought down upon those men darkness and confusion, and the hand of everyone that smote him became withered. And they said to each other, "What is this thing that Elohim has done to us in the road?" And they knew not that this befell them on account of Yahusuf. And the men proceeded on the road, and they passed along the road of Ephrathah, where Rachel was buried. And Yahusuf reached his mother's grave. And Yahusuf hastened and ran to his mother's grave, and fell upon the grave and wept. And Yahusuf cried aloud upon his mother's grave, and he said, "O my mother, my mother, O you who did give birth, awake now and rise and see your son, how he has been sold for a slave, and no one to pity him. O rise and see your son, weep with me on account of my troubles, and see the heart of my brethren. Arouse, my mother, arouse, awake from your sleep for me, and direct your battles against my brethren. Oh, how they stripped me of my coat, and sold me already twice for a slave, and separated me from my father, and there is no one to pity me. Arouse and lay your cause against them before Elohim, and see whom Elohim will justify in the judgment, and whom he will condemn. Rise, O my mother, rise, awake from your sleep, and see my father, how his soul is with me this day, and comfort him and ease his heart." And Yahusuf continued to speak these words, and Yahusuf cried aloud and wept bitterly upon his mother's grave. And he ceased speaking, and from bitterness of heart he became still as a stone upon the grave. And Yahusuf heard a voice speaking to him from beneath the ground, which answered him with bitterness of heart and with a voice of weeping and praying in these words, my son Yahusuf, I have heard the voice of your weeping and the voice of your lamentation. I have seen your tears. I know your troubles, my son, and it grieves me for your sake, and abundant grief is added to my grief. Now therefore, my son Yahusuf, my son, hope to Yahuwah, and wait for him, and do not fear, for Yahuwah is with you. He will deliver you from all trouble. Rise, my son, go down unto Mitzrayim with your masters, and do not fear, for Yahuwah is with you, my son. And she continued to speak like unto these words unto Yahusuf, and she was still. And Yahusuf heard this, and he wondered greatly at this, and he continued to weep. And after this, one of the Ishmaelim observed him crying and weeping upon the grave, and his anger was kindled against him, and he drove him from there, and he smote him and cursed him. And Yahusuf said unto the men, May I find favor in your sight to take me back to my father's house, and he will give you abundance of riches. And they answered him, saying, Are you not a slave, and where is your father? And if you had a father, you would not already twice have been sold for a slave for so little value. And their anger was still roused against him, and they continued to smite him and to chastise him. And Yahusuf wept bitterly. And Yahuwah saw Yahusuf's affliction, and Yahuwah again smote these men and chastised them. And Yahuwah caused darkness to envelop them upon the earth. And the lightning flashed, and the thunder roared, and the earth shook at the voice of the thunder and of the mighty wind. And the men were terrified and knew not where they should go. And the beast and camels stood still, and they led them, but they would not go. They smote them, and they crouched upon the ground. And the men said to each other, What is this that Elohim has done to us? what are our transgressions and what are our crimes that this thing has befallen us? And one of them answered and said unto them, perhaps on account of the crime of afflicting this slave has this thing happened to this day. Now therefore implore him strongly to forgive us, and then we shall know on whose account this evil befalls us. And if Elohim shall have compassion over us, then we shall know that all this comes to us on account of the crime of afflicting this slave. And the men did so, and they supplicated Yahusuf and pressed him to forgive them. And they said, we have committed crime to Yahuwah and to you. Now therefore vouchsafe to request of your Elohim that he shall put away this death from amongst us, for we have committed crime to him. And Yahusuf did according to their words, and Yahuwah hearkened to Yahusuf, and Yahuwah put away the plague which he had inflicted upon these men on account of Yahusuf. And the beast rose up from the ground, and they conducted them. And they went on, and the raging storms abated, and the earth became tranquilized. And the men proceeded on their journey to go down to Mitzrayim. And the men knew that this evil had befallen them on account of Yahusuf. And they said to each other, behold, we know that it was on account of his affliction that this evil befell us. Now therefore, why shall we bring this death upon our souls? Let us hold counsel what to do to this slave. And one answered and said, surely he told us, bring him back to his father. Now therefore, come, let us take him back, and we will go to the place that he will tell us, and take from his family the price that we gave for him, and we will then go away. And another one answered and said, behold, this counsel is very good, but we cannot do so, for the way is very far from us, and we cannot go out of our road. And one more answered and said unto them, this is the counsel to be adopted. We will not swerve from it. Behold, we are this day going to Mitzrayim. And when we shall have come to Mitzrayim, we shall sell him at a high price, and we will be delivered from his evil. And this thing pleased the men, and they did so. And they continued their journey to Mitzrayim with Yahusuf.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. So Yahusuf now is headed down to Mitzrayim to be humbled. To be humbled, to be anah, to be humbled, to be afflicted, to teach him how to be humble. We know that there were other motives, because through Yahusuf, Yahuwah saved the whole people from famine. But in order to be prepared for the mantle that was to be given to him, he had to be anah, he had to be humbled, he had to be afflicted. No different than the path of his father Yahuwah, who went down and did what? And served Laban. He served him. Yes, he did. He served him for 20 years. He served that wicked man for 20 years. And there a nation was born. And after the 20 years, he was what? He was exalted to the land of his inheritance. He was exalted to the land in which Yahuwah had promised to Abraham and to Yitzchak, his father. And so it all begins, exaltation. It all begins, everlasting life. The ancient path, it all begins with servitude. It all begins with being a servant. We cannot get around this. We cannot get around being a servant. We cannot be around being humbled. We cannot get around this. It is impossible for us to get around this. This is the door. This is the dalat. Yes, it is. Dalat is the Hebrew word for word. I'm sorry. The bar. This is the door. This is the dalat. The Hebrew word for word is dabar. Dalat, ba'i, and rash. Dalit, dalat, ba'i, and rash. Dalit meaning door, ba'i meaning house, rash meaning head. So it is the word that gets us in through the door into the house where we meet the head. This is Torah. This is Torah. This is the ancient path. The ancient path is Torah. The ancient path is the servant's road. It is the servant's road. We cannot obey Torah without submitting to Torah, without submitting to the word, without submitting to Yahuwah. We must humble ourselves and submit. And if we humble ourselves and submit and humbly walk this ancient path as servants, at the end of it, we shall be exalted. We shall be exalted. How are we looking for time, little one?
149.
149. I think we're going to read maybe one more chapter because I want to give my Aisha a break. Barak Yahuwah. I wanna place her before myself. I know what it is to read like this, Barak Yahuwah. Before my eyes were dim, that was a heavy task to both read and teach and proclaim. And so when you are proclaiming from your belly, or when you are reading from your belly, when you are speaking from your belly, it takes a lot out of you. And so I'm going to put her before myself, and I pray you'll do the same. I pray you will after all this proclaiming that I was been doing. I pray you'll put it before yourself. But we're going to read one more chapter, and then we'll probably conclude this for today and pick it up again either on the 4th day or next Shabbat. Barak Yahuwah.
Joshua 43.
Joshua, Yashar, chapter 43. Joshua, Yashar, chapter 43. Beginning at verse 1, we read.
And when the sons of Yaakov had sold their brother Yahusuf to the Midianite, their hearts were smitten on account of him, and they repented of their acts, and they sought for him to bring him back, but could not find him. And Reuben returned to the pit in which Yahusuf had been put, in order to lift him out and restore him to his father.
I'll tell you what, little one. Scroll through chapter 43 and see if there's a place where we pick up talking about Yahusuf again.
Okay.
And then we'll start there, because we're looking at Yahusuf right now.
Okay.
Okay, chapter 44.
All right.
Chapter 44. Joshua, Yashar, chapter 44, beginning at verse 1. Read, little one.
All right. And the sons of Ishmael, who had brought Yahusuf from the Midianite, who had brought him from his brethren, went to Mitzrayim with Yahusuf. And they came upon the borders of Mitzrayim. And when they came near unto Mitzrayim, they met 4 men of the sons of Madan, the sons of Abraham, who had gone forth from the land of Mitzrayim on their journey. And the Ishmaelites said unto him, Do you desire to purchase this slave from us? And they said, Deliver him over to us. And they delivered Yahusuf over to them. And they beheld him that he was a very commonly youth, and they purchased him for 20 shekels. And the Ishmaelim continued their journey to Mitzrayim, and the Midian also returned that day to Mitzrayim. And the Midianites said to each other, Behold, we have heard that Potiphar, an officer of Parah, captain of the guard, seeks a good servant who shall stand before him to attend him and to make him overseer over his house and all belonging to him. Now therefore come, let us sell him to him for what we may desire, if he be able to give unto us that which shall require for him. And these Midianim, I put my glasses on, went and came to the house of Potiphar and said unto him, We have heard that you seek a good servant to attend you. Behold, we have a servant that will please you, if you can give unto us that which we desire, and we will sell him unto you. And Potiphar said, Bring him before me, and I will see him. And if he pleases me, I will give unto you that which you may require for him. And the Midianite went and brought Yahusuf and placed him before Potiphar, and he saw him, and he pleased him exceedingly. And Potiphar said unto him, Tell me what you require for this youth. And they said, 400 pieces of silver we desire for him. And Potiphar said, I will give it to you, if you bring me the record of his sale to you, and will tell me his history, for perhaps he may be stolen. For this youth is neither a slave nor the son of a slave, but I observe in him the appearance of a goodly and handsome person. And the Midianite went and brought unto him the Ishmaelim who had sold him to them, and they told him, saying, He is a slave, and we sold him to them. And Potiphar heard the words of the Ishmaelim in his giving the silver unto the Madaim, and the Madaim took the silver and went on their journey. And the Ishmaelim also returned home. And Potiphar took Yahusuf and brought him to his house, that he might serve him. And Yahusha found favor in the sight of Potiphar, and he placed confidence in him and made him overseer over his house. And all that belonged to him he delivered over into his hands. And Yahuwah was with Yahusha, and he became a prosperous man. And Yahuwah blessed the house of Potiphar for the sake of Yahusha.
For the sake of his firstborn son. For the sake of his firstborn perfect son, who was a servant. Yes, he was. Yahusha, firstborn son, was a servant. All of his firstborn sons are servants. This is where the ancient path begins. This is where that starting point begins with us being servants, being on our knees. I pray you're getting the context with us being on our knees as servants, humbling ourselves, bowing down before our master as servants. This is where the ancient path begins. This is where it begins. You cannot walk this road. You cannot begin this road unless you are a servant. And if you expect to be exalted, the place from which we must, all of us must be exalted from, is from a place of servitude, which we cannot do from the flesh, which we cannot do if we are not firstborn according to the Ruach. Read, little one.
And Potiphar left all that he had in the hand of Yahusha. And Yahusha was one that caused things to come in and go out. Everything was regulated by his wish in the house of Potiphar. And Yahusha was 18 years old, a youth with beautiful eyes and a comely appearance. And like unto him was not in the whole land of Mitzrayim. And at that time, while he was in the master's house, going in and out of the house and attending his master, Zalikala, his master's woman, lifted up her eyes toward Yahusha, and she looked at him, and behold, he was a youth commonly and well favored. And she coveted his beauty in her heart, and her soul was fixed upon Yahusha, and she enticed him day after day. And Zalikah pursued Yahusha daily, but Yahusha did not lift up his eyes to behold his master's woman. And
he did not lift up his eyes to behold his master's woman. If your eye causes you to commit sin or crime, pluck it out. It is better to enter into life with one eye than to enter into damnation, eternal damnation, or the second death with two. Read, little one.
And Zalikah said unto him, How goodly are your appearance and form! Truly I have looked at all the slaves, and have not seen so beautiful a slave as you are. And Yahusha said unto her, Surely he who created me in my mother's womb created all mankind. And she said unto him, How beautiful are your eyes, with which you have dazzled all the inhabitants of Mitzrayim, men and women.
This snake is hissing. This snake is hissing. And this is a young boy. This is a young boy enduring all of this pressure. Enduring all of this pressure, but his love for his Elohim was greater than his flesh. His love for Elohim was greater than his flesh. Oh, how I pray, how I wish that this was applicable to all the house of YAHUAH'S. His love for his Elohim was greater than his flesh. And this was a very beautiful woman. A very, very beautiful woman. A beautiful woman who pursued him and seduced him with this hissing day after day after day after day. But yet this perfect man, this firstborn according to the flesh, whom according to the Ruach, who loved Yahuwah more than his flesh, resisted her. Read, little one.
And he said unto her, How beautiful they are while we are alive. But should you behold them in Shaul, surely you would move away from them. And she said unto him, How beautiful and pleasing are all your words. Take now, I pray you, the harp which is in the house, and play with your hands, and let us hear your words. And he said unto her, How beautiful and pleasing are my words when I speak the praise of my Elohim and his esteem. And she said unto him, How very beautiful is the hair of your head. Behold the golden comb which is in the house. Take it, I pray you, and curl the hair of your head. And he said unto her, How long will you speak these words? Cease to utter these words to me, and rise and attend to your domestic affairs. And she said unto him, There is no one in my house, and there is nothing to attend to but to your words and to your wish. Yet notwithstanding all this, she could not bring Yahusha unto her. Neither did he place his eye upon her, but directed his eyes below to the ground.
As a servant. Barak Yahuwah.
And Zalika desired Yehusuf in her heart that he should lie with her. And at that time Yehusuf was sitting in the house doing his work. Zalika came and sat before him, and she enticed him daily with her discourse to lie with her, or even to look at her. But Yehusuf would not hearken to her. And she said unto him, if you will not do according to my words, I will chastise you with the punishment of death and put an iron yoke upon you. And Yehusuf said unto her,
He'd rather die than to disobey his Elohim. A firstborn son, a servant, would rather die than to disobey his master. A good servant would rather die than to disobey his master. Read.
And Yehusuf said unto her, surely Elohim, who created man, loosens the fetters of prisoners, and it is he who will deliver me from your prison and from your judgment. And when she could not prevail over him to persuade him, and her soul being still fixed upon him, her desire threw her into a grievous sickness. And all the women of Mitzrayim came to visit her, and they said unto her, why are you in this declining state, you that lack nothing? Surely your man is a great and esteemed prince in sight of the king. Should you lack anything of what your heart desires? And Zalika answered him, saying, this day it shall be made known to you whence this disorder springs in which you see me. And she commanded her maidservants to prepare food for all the women. And she made a banquet for them, and all the women ate in the house of Zalika. And she gave them knives to peel the citrons to eat them. And she commanded that they should dress Yehusuf in costly garments, and that he should appear before them. And Yehusuf came before their eyes, and all the women looked on Yehusuf, and could not take their eyes from off him. And they all cut their hands with the knives that they had in their hands, and all the citrons that were in their hands were filled with blood. And they knew not what they had done, but they continued to look at the beauty of Yehusuf, and did not turn their eyelids from him. And Zalika saw what they had done, and she said unto them, what is this work that you have done? Behold, I give you citrons to eat, and you have all cut your hands. And all the women saw their hands, and behold, they were full of blood, and their blood flowed down upon their garments. And they said unto her, this slave in your house has overcome us, and we could not turn our eyelids from him on account of his beauty. And she said unto them, surely this happened to you in the moment that you looked at him, and you could not contain yourselves from him. How then can I refrain when he is constantly in my house, and I see him day after day going in and out of my house? How then can I keep from declining, or even from perishing on account of this? And they said unto her, the words are true, for who can see this beautiful form in the house and refrain from him? And is he not your slave and attendant in your house? And why do you not tell him that which is in your heart, and suffer your soul to perish through this matter? And she said unto them, I am daily endeavoring to persuade him, and he will not consent to my wishes. I promised him everything that is good, and yet I could meet with no return from him. I am therefore in a declining state, as you see. And Zalika became very ill on account of her desire toward Yehusuf, and she was desperately lovesick on account of him. And all the people of the house of Zalika and her man knew nothing of this matter, that Zalika was ill on account of her love to Yehusuf. And all the people of her house asked her, saying, why are you ill and declining and lack nothing? And she said unto them, I know not this thing which is daily increasing upon me. And all the women and her friends came daily to see her, and they spoke with her. And she said unto them, this can only be through the love of Yehusuf. And they said unto her, entice him and seize him secretly. Perhaps he may hearken to you and put off this death from you. And Zalika became worse from her love to Yehusuf, and she continued to decline till she had scarce strength to stand. And on a certain day, Yehusuf was doing his master's work in the house, and Zalika came secretly and fell suddenly upon him. And Yehusuf rose up against her, and he was more powerful than she, and he brought her down to the ground. And Zalika wept on account of the desire of her heart toward him, and she supplicated him with weeping, and her tears flowed down her cheek. And she spoke unto him in a voice of supplication and in bitterness of soul, saying, have you ever heard, seen, or known of so beautiful a woman as I am, or better than myself, who speak daily unto you? Fall into a decline through love for you, confer all this honor upon you, and still you would not hearken to my voice.
In the Testament of Judah, it is written, a woman will seduce a man in one or two ways. either through her beauty, and if she cannot seduce him through beauty, she will entice him through incantation. So she could not entice this righteous man through her beauty, and so now she alludes to incantation. She alludes to spells to try to turn this righteous man to her. And she was just not no ordinary woman. She was very beautiful. She was either the most beautiful woman in Egypt or one of the most beautiful women in Egypt. Yet this righteous man, as any good servant would do, would rather die than to disobey the voice of his master. He would rather die than to disobey the voice of his master. He is his master's servant. He is his master's servant. And he would rather die than to disobey the voice of his master. This is the example. This is the example of a firstborn. We are servants on this earth. On this earth, we are servants. We have been reduced to servanthood. And through servanthood, this path, this ancient path, is the only way, the only path that will lead to Mount Zion, and the only path that will lead to everlasting life. Read, little one.
And if it be through fear of your master, lest he punish you, as the king lives, no harm shall come to you from your master through this thing. Now therefore pray, listen to me, and consent for the sake of the honor which I have conferred upon you, and put off this death from me, and why should I die for your sake? And she ceased to speak. And YAHUAH'S answered her, saying, refrain from me, and leave this matter to my master. Behold, my master knows what there is with me in this house, for all that belongs to him he has delivered into my hand. And how shall I do these things in my master's house? For he has also greatly honored me in this house, and he has also made me overseer over his house.
Do you hear? A servant, a good servant, would rather die than to dishonor or disobey his master. Do you see the example? This is the example, servanthood. We must be servants. Read.
And he has exalted me, and there is no one greater in this house than I am. And my master has refrained nothing from me except in you who are his woman. How then can you speak these words unto me? How can I do this great evil and commit crime to Elohim and to your man? Now therefore refrain from me, and speak no more such words as these. For I will not hearken to your words. But Zalika would not hearken to YAHUAH'S when he spoke these words unto her, but she daily enticed him to listen to her. And it was after this that the brook of Mizraim was filled above all its sides, and all the inhabitants of Mizraim went forth. And also the king and princes went forth with timbrels and dances, for it was a great rejoicing in Mizraim, and a holiday at that time, at the time of the induation of the sea of Shakur. And they went there to rejoice all day. And when the Mizraim went out to the river to rejoice, as was their custom, all the people of the house of Potiphar went with them. But Zalika would not go with them, for she said, I am indisposed. And she remained alone in the house, and no other person was with her in the house. And she rose up and ascended to her temple in the house, and dressed herself in princely garments. And she placed upon her head precious stones of onyx stone, inlaid with silver and gold. And she beautified her face and skin with all sorts of women's purifying liquids. And she perfumed the temple and the house with cassia and frankincense. And she spread myrrh and aloes. And she afterwards sat in the entrance of the temple, in the passage of the house.
Oh, she spread it on thick, didn't she, little one? Boy, she spread it on thick with that incantation. Oh, the average man would have bent, especially these so-called Hebrew Israelites that's got 3 or 4 women in the same house to satisfy the wicked desires of their wicked lust, their wicked flesh. They would have caved a long time ago. A long time ago. Oh, she laid it on thick, didn't she, little one?
Yeah, she laid it on thick.
Read.
Okay. In the passage of the house through which YAHUAH'S passed to do his work. And behold, YAHUAH'S came from the field and entered the house to do his master's work. I had to mute that. Okay. And Zalika saw YAHUAH'S turning back from her, and she called out to him, saying, what ails you, YAHUAH'S? Come to your work, and behold, I will make room for you until you shall have passed to your seat. And Yahusuf returned and came to the house and passed from thence to the place of his seat, and he sat down to do his master's work as usual. And behold, Zuleika came to him and stood before him in princely garments, and the scent from her clothes was spread to a distance. And she hastened and caught hold of Yahusuf and his garments, and she said unto him, As the king lives, if you will not perform my request, you shall die this day. And she hastened and stretched forth her other hand and drew a sword from beneath her garments. She placed it upon Yahusuf's neck and said, Rise and perform my request, and if not, you die this day. And Yahusuf was afraid of her at her doing this. And he rose up to flee from her, and she seized the front of his garment. And in the terror of his flight, the garment which Zuleika seized was torn, and Yahusuf left the garment in the hand of Zuleika. And he fled out and got out, for he was in fear. And when Zuleika saw that Yahusuf's garment was torn, and that he had left it in her hand, and he fled, she was afraid of her life, lest a report should spread concerning her. And she rose up and acted with cunning, and put off the garments in which she was dressed, and she put on her other garments. And she took Yahusuf's garment, and she laid it beside her. And she went and seated herself in the place where she had sat in her illness, before the people of her house had gone out to the river. And she called a young lad who was then in the house, and she ordered him to call the people of the house to her. And when she saw them, she said unto them with a loud voice and lamentation, See what an abri your master has brought to me in the house, for he came this day to lie with me. For when you had gone out, he came to the house, and seeing that there was no person in the house, he came unto me and caught hold of me with intent to lie with me. And I seized his garments and tore them, and called out against him with a loud voice. And when I had lifted up my voice, he was afraid of his life, and left his garment before me and fled. And the people of her house spoke nothing, but their wrath was very much kindled against Yahusuf. And they went to his master and told him the words of his woman. And Potiphar came home enraged. And his woman cried out to him, saying, What is this thing that you have done unto me in bringing an abri servant into my house? For he came unto me this day to sport with me. Thus did he do unto me this day. And Potiphar heard the words of his woman, and ordered Yahusuf to be punished with severe stripes. And they did so to him. And while they were smiting him, Yahusuf called out with a loud voice, and lifted up his eyes to heaven, and said, O YAHUAH'S, you know that I am innocent of all these things. And why shall I die this day through falsehood by the hand of these uncircumcised wicked men whom you know? And while Potiphar's men were beating Yahusuf, he continued to cry out and wept and weep. And there was a child there 11 months old, and Yahuwah opened the mouth of this child, and he spoke these words before Potiphar's men who were smiting Yahusuf, saying, What do you want of this man, and why do you do this evil unto him? My mother speaks falsely and utters lies. Thus was the transaction. And the child told them accurately all that had happened, and all the words of Zuleika to Yahusuf day after day did he declare unto them. And all the men heard these words of the child, and they wondered greatly at the child's words. And the child ceased to speak and became still. And Potiphar was very much ashamed at the words of his son, and commanded his men not to beat Yahusuf any more. And the men ceased beating Yahusuf. And Potiphar took Yahusuf and ordered him be brought to justice before the priests, who were judges belonging to the king, in order to judge him concerning this affair. And Potiphar and Yahusuf came before the priests, who were the king's judge. And he said unto them, Decide, I pray you, what judgment is due to his servant, for thus has he done. And the priest said unto Yahusuf, Why did you do this thing to your master? And Yahusuf answered them, saying, Not so, my master, thus was this matter. And Potiphar said unto Yahusuf, Surely I entrusted in your hands all that belonged to me, and I withheld nothing from you but my woman. How could you do this evil? And Yahusuf answered, saying, Not so, my master, as Yahuwah lives, and as your soul lives, my master, the word which you did hear from your woman is untrue, for thus was the affair this day. A year has elapsed to me since I have been in your house. Have you seen any iniquity in me, or anything which might cause you to demand my life? And the priest said unto Potiphar, Send, we pray you, and let them bring before us Yahusuf's torn garment, and let's see the tear in it. And if it shall be that the tear is front of the garment, then his face must have been opposite to her, and she must have caught hold of him to come to her with deceit. Did your woman do all that she had spoken? And they brought Yahusuf's garment before the priest, who were judges, and they saw, and behold, the terror was in front of YAHUAH'S. And all the judging priests knew that she had pressed him, and they said, the judgment of death is not due to this slave, for he has done nothing. But his judgment is that he be placed in the prison house on account of the report which through him has gone forth against your woman. And Potiphar heard these words, and he placed him in the prison house, the place where the king's prisoners are confined. And YAHUAH'S was in the house of confinement 12 years. And notwithstanding this, his master's woman did not turn from him, and she did not cease from speaking to him day after day to hearken to her. And at the end of 3 months, Zelicah continued going to YAHUAH'S to the house of confinement day by day, and she enticed him to hearken to her. And Zelicah said unto YAHUAH'S, how long will you remain in this house? But hearken now to my voice, and I will bring you out of this house. And YAHUAH'S answered her, saying, it is better for me to remain in this house than to hearken to your words, to commit crime against Elohim. And she said unto him, if you will not perform my wish, I will pluck out your eyes and add fetters to your feet, and will deliver you into the hands of them whom you do not know, who you did not know before. And YAHUAH'S answered her and said, behold, the Elohim of the whole earth is able to deliver me from all that you can do unto me. For he opens the eyes of the blind and loosens those that are bound, and preserves all strangers who are unacquainted with the land. And when Zelicah was unable to persuade YAHUAH'S to hearken to her, she left off going to entice him. And YAHUAH'S was still confined in the house of confinement. And Yaakov, the father of YAHUAH'S, and all his brethren who were in the land of Canaan, still mourned and wept in those days on the account of YAHUAH'S. For Yaakov refused to be comforted for his son YAHUAH'S. And Yaakov cried aloud and wept and mourned all these days, all those days.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. A good servant would rather die than to disobey the voice of his master. A good servant would rather suffer imprisonment, would rather suffer beatings than to disobey the voice of his master. No matter how great the temptation, and this was a great temptation that was placed before this young boy. A great temptation. She laid it on thick. She laid it on very thick. But this servant would rather run out of the house naked than to disobey the voice of his master. We all must be servants. We all must be servants like this. This is the lesson. This is the example. We all must be servants. It amazes me. It amazes me that many think that they can walk this walk without humbling themselves and becoming a servant, even as YAHUAH'S was a servant, and even as YAHUAH came to serve. It further surprises me that one can aspire to be a servant, but think that somehow as a servant that you're not going to be humbled, that you're not going to be afflicted, and that you're not going to suffer persecution. Indeed, the words of Sha'al declares that if anyone desires to follow the Hamashiach, he or she shall suffer persecution. To follow the Hamashiach is the path of righteousness. It is the servant's path. It is the ancient path. It is humbling oneself, lowering oneself as a servant, even as he came to serve. And so Sha'al, Paul declares, if you declare to walk like this, truly walk as a servant, then you're going to be humbled. You are going to suffer persecution. You're going to suffer persecution. So the question out there remains to the four corners of the Araz, are you suffering? Are you being humbled? Are you suffering persecution? Are you being humbled? Because if you're not being humbled, the question is, are you truly then a servant? Are you truly a servant? Because a servant humbles himself daily. There's something that comes along to humble a servant daily, because the more you think that you know about Abba, the more he shows you that you don't know anything about him, really. And the more you think you know, the more he shows you that you don't know. We must be servants. There is no other way. The ancient path is the servant's path. It is the perfect way, and in which no one can walk unless they first operate from love, and unless they first operate from a way of perfection, from a point of perfection, which is operating via the Ruach HaKodesh. Thank you, Master, for what you're doing.
Yes.
We thank you even for this day's bread.
Thank you, Master.
We thank you for showing us, Master, that we've got to be servants. There is no other way. And that we cannot be servants without first having love, because this is how we are identified. It is righteousness that identifies us as your people. Love is righteousness. And we cannot serve. We cannot serve unless we love. We cannot operate in the way of righteousness unless we love. We cannot become servants unless we love. And we cannot have love unless we have your Ruach inside of us, because you are love. You are love. And so, Abba, we pray that you would continue to humble us as servants. Teach us how to be servants. Teach us how to walk the servant's path. Teach us how in servitude that we must put each other before ourselves. That we must continue to humble ourselves below your feet and below the feet of our fellow man, never exalting ourselves, but rather putting them before ourselves and serving them, serving one another, washing one another's feet, serving one another, being willing to die for one another, being willing to give our lives even for our brothers and our sisters and our wives, being willing to walk your righteous example, walking the righteous example of the ancient path. It is my prayer, Master, that not one seed, not one word of this message has fallen void to the ground, but that it is accomplishing that which you have sent it forth to do. That not one seed has fallen by the wayside. That not one seed has fallen on stony ground, and that not one seed has fallen amongst thorns. But that this word, as we continue to walk this ancient path, that this word is falling upon fertile soil, tilled and fertilized soil, such that your Ruach will come and water that seed, so that it will grow up to become a mighty tree, producing the fruit that leads to everlasting life. In the name of Yahushua HaMashiach, so be it, so be it, so be it. Once again, we thank you on YouTube who have joined us once more for another Shabbat message, for another Shabbat gathering. We pray that you are being edified. We pray that you're being encouraged. We pray that you're being convicted. We're praying now that as Abba continues to teach us and to show us his way, we pray now that you understand that being a servant is not optional, that it is mandatory, and that one can only be a servant via the Ruach HaKodesh, who alone places his love in us, the love that is requisite of operating in the perfection and the level of righteousness and servitude that is required of us. Until the next time, Yahuwah barak you and guard you. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and show favor unto you. Yahuwah lift up his face upon you and give you shalom. Thus you shall put my name on the children of YAHUAH'S, and I myself shall barak them. So be it, so be it, so be it.